if if a picture is worth 1,000 words, how much is a movie worth? A lot. I think we have a problem. And the problem is called movies, media, clips, and so on and so forth. The power of a movie is unbelievable. But the message that the movies carry is extremely, extremely shallow. There hasn't been in I don't know how many years a masterful movies. There are no more masters of movies. Like, for example, if you're talking about Akira Kurosawa, the famous Japanese director, he was a master. Look at the influence that he had on people like Spielberg and Francis Ford Coppola and so on and so forth. Akira Kurosawa was a master. He used to paint every scene from his movie, and his movies are unbelievable. He influences even people like Spike Lee in techniques of pictures, and it was a master. Or Fellini, or people of that they were masters. Today there aren't. Okay, I understand that movie directors, studios, and so on and so forth need to make money. I understand. It's fine. But the trend of making money, and you, by the way, you're going to tell me, what does it have to do with me? I was like, we'll get there. With this thing of making money, the more commercial the movie, the more intent for money, the less depth that movie produces. Because, I mean, for crying out loud, how many Alfred Hitchcocks are nowadays? Nothing. So, what happens is, movies are so powerful. So when you sit there, you're becoming passive. And through movies, besides the tendency to make money, there's also a political and moral agenda that is always being handed over to you by the movies. For example, if you're going to see, sit down and watch, an old, Ford/Wayne movies, M. Ford and what's his name, John Wayne movies. The guy gets shot. Many times there's nothing there. He just goes like this, falls down. And if you see, it looks like somebody took gouache paint and just put it on his clothes. And we all pretend it was, we all knew that it's pretend, but we all think it's dead. And then we were kids, we used to play cowboys and Indians just like John Wayne. We used to imitate that, like this. As year progressed, and years gone by, gore became a very common thing. It became real, especially with all these effects that they use and so on and so forth. I mean, Kishkir's coming out. If you see Saving Private Ryan, you'll see how. Okay, so I understand you could use it for a certain thing, but beyond that, so today we became so okay with people killing one another that we take guns and we simply go ahead and kill people. Because we think it's all a video game. Needless to say, of course, the influence of video games on mass shooting, like the guy in New Zealand that did a few years ago and whatever it is. It's all like in a video game. So, and of course, also agendas. Whether it's LGBTQ, XC, WXYZ, whatever you have to do it. Maybe it's this, maybe it's racial things, and and so on and so forth. Always being in. So it's basically a lose situation when you watch a movie. You lose. Because you make yourself passive, and in a way, and maybe practically, what you are handing yourself over to is brainwashing. Brainwashing does not take place unless you are willing to allow the person to brainwash you. If you're going to resist in your mind whatever they're going to throw your way, they can never brainwash you. You cannot be brainwashed. You're willing, you allow this to happen. So when we sit down and we watch a movie, you are opening the floodgates of foreign ideas and shallowness into yourself. We'll come to the shallow now. They even made a song like this, Lady Gaga. It's all about being shallow. No depth, no morals, no thinking, no depth in terms of like being intellectual. Now, but don't think that in the religious world we are so immune for that. Just, of course, we're doing a little better because we do talk about morals and ideas, and we exchange ideas, and when you learn Gemara, you become a little bit more intellectual and so on and so forth. But we have our share of entertainment propaganda. When we have rabbis that see themselves more as celebrities than a delivering platform of message of self-improvement and so on and so forth. I think it's really, how should I say to you, lowering the level of Torah when you have a rabbi that really makes his claim to fame is by telling great jokes. I'm not saying you should not have a sense of humor, but if your whole entire lecture is jokes or statistic information, the numerical value of this is that, and as a result, there's no depth, there's no engagement in intellectual property. And we become religious people, yet very shallow as well. So one of the things for you to do is to be the guard or yourself from such things. For example, stop watching TV. Stop watching TV. Because then you become distorted. Because then you take sides. You become liberal, you become conservative, or you become this, but you are a tool in the hands of something greater than you. You don't have a sense of self. You never thought about things. You can't be your own man. You can't think for yourself. You can't be your own man. You don't know what's right or wrong. And for sure, when you don't know what's right or wrong, you're always going to do the wrong thing. So therefore, I will encourage you, first of all, to shut down all your movies. Don't watch movies. Don't watch, all this, cartoons. Even if you're talking about Mongolians building a city wall, if you know what I mean. Right, whatever it is. Don't watch those things. Instead of doing that, forget about the word worth, the picture worth. Forget it. Go back to the books. Start reading. Start reading. Because when you read, you create a whole thinking process in yourself. Reading is the antidote for stupidity that is being propagated to us by the media, by everybody else, so you could stop thinking. I always like to read a book better than to watch a movie. Why? Because when I read the book, even as a child, when I read the book, I had a whole picture in my head of how things were and so on and so forth. But when you allow a producer or a director make a movie, they make the movie according to how they see it. And it's not the way I saw it. There are very, very few cases that the movie was better than the book. Most of the time is the other way around. And yet nobody reads. So I will tell you, start reading. Read. Read biographies, read autobiographies, read fiction, of course, of value, not some kind of whatever it is. You have to become readers. Why? Because if you don't read, your kids will grow up to be imbeciles. engage in whatever it is. Learn history. I'll give you an example. How crazy we are. Everybody knows about Pearl Harbor. But did you ever ask yourself a question? Why did the Japanese attack Pearl Harbor? I mean, they had other things to attack. They had to go like this and all the way to Pearl. Why Pearl Harbor? Now, if you watch the movie, you think it's all about a love story, whatever it is, and a kol tov v'yafeh. But you don't understand why they did certain things. I think, to my very humble opinion, that the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor because what? The Americans put a blockade at the beginning of the 20th century, the end of the 19th century. They put a blockade on Japan with the naval forces to force Japan to open up. The Japanese punished the Americans. Why do you think the Japanese were so cruel to China? It's very simple. Because the Chinese disgraced the Japanese. During the time of the shoguns and the unification of Japan, forgot the name of this guy. He unified Japan for the first time. And then he went to China. And the Chinese treated him like nothing, like one of the subservients. And it was a big insult to the Japanese. So when the Japanese finally said, okay, enough is enough, they went to conquer China. And when they did conquer China, they had a good memory. They had a memory of a few hundred years. That happens around, I don't know, 1560, 15 something. So they had a memory of almost 400 years. When they actually penetrated China, they butchered them of the insult. We don't know that because we watch movies all the time. So you need to learn anything you learn, even if you become an expert, a novice expert, which is kind of an oxymoron, novice expert. But increase your knowledge on anything, even if it's Far Asian history. But tell me what, that's going to, because that will bring other things. It will teach you, require you the skills to develop, that you could develop knowledge, you could acquire knowledge. Start reading, books of thought, thinking books. The people wrote. I don't care if you're reading Bicken, or you're reading about Lao Tzu, or you're reading Confucius, or you're reading the Book of Five Rings, or you're reading The Art of War, or read for crying out loud. Increase your intellect, become intellectual, become smart, become well-rounded, full of information. You're not going to be stupid. Then you're not going to sin, because you are constantly thinking, engaging yourself in a thinking process. As a result of that, you'll be able to weigh what's good and what's bad much better. But when you are a shallow person, that's about the end. You are going to wear crazy clothing made out of steaks, if you know what I mean, because you're shallow. Become interested in developing depth, so you'll have something to engage with your kids in thinking, so your kids will not be imbecile. Talk to you, so when you actually talk to your wife, you'll have something to say, and not just like blah, 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 like that. Most of us have nothing important to say about anything that was self-generated. Everything, to most part, is regurgitation of information delivered by somebody else to you. Do you like to eat somebody else's spit up? Do you like to eat somebody else's chewed up food? Why do you chew up somebody else's information? Process it yourself. It's a mitzvah midoraita to be smart, not to be stupid. So you have to read, and you have to engage, and to acquire knowledge to the best of your abilities. And when you think you did the best, you should realize you only did 40% of your best. You haven't done a thing yet. Have a great day.